Welcome to the Dodo Dads podcast, where we talk with real dads who are in the trenches raising daughters and doing their best to get it right. Through honest conversations, shared experiences, and a little humor, this show is designed to encourage, equip, and inspire good fathers to become even better girl dads. I'm Greg Gerber, the founder of Dodo Dads and the father of 3 now grown young women with families of their own. Today I'm joined by Greg Coote. He's a single father from South Africa who shares a deeply moving journey about raising his daughter after the loss of his wife when Michaela was just 18 months old. In this conversation, Greg opens up about the overwhelming moment he first held his daughter and how he felt an instant sense of protection and responsibility. He shares what it was like stepping into the role of a solo dad during unimaginable grief and how he moved from survival mode into a more intentional, present style of parenting. We talk about how he creates a safe space for Michaela to express emotions, and how he balances protection with independence, and why learning to listen instead of trying to fix everything has transformed their relationship. Greg shares practical insight into raising a confident, curious daughter in today's world, including setting boundaries around technology, encouraging healthy habits, and supporting her passions in music and sports. He also explains how his personal growth and faith journey have shaped the way he parents and how vulnerability, presence, and compassion have become the foundation of his relationship with his daughter. To tell us more about how he shows up for Michaela every day, please welcome Greg Coote to the show. Thanks for joining me today, Greg. I really appreciate the time. I know things are a little different down in South Africa as compared to here in the Phoenix area. It's almost nighttime for you, but you're almost on your way out the door to help your daughter do a soccer practice. So I really, truly appreciate the time.
Thank you so much for having me. It's amazing being here with you.
When you first learned that you were expecting a girl, what was your reaction?
Disbelief. For some reason, I thought that it was going to be a boy. Yeah, when I found out that it was going to be a girl, it was very much a thing of, okay, so how did we do this? So yeah, it was something that definitely took me by surprise.
Was it by surprise you found out that you were a father of a girl at birth, or did you know a couple of weeks beforehand?
No, I did know before. So yeah, when we found out, yeah, as I said, it definitely wasn't what I was expecting, but very pleasant surprise at the same time.
Did you come into the role naturally or without problems, or did you have a lot of adjustment to get used to being a girl dad?
I think there was some sort of instinct that just kicked in. I think as men, we want to be prepared and we can be a bit practical and, okay, so what do we need to do? And I think the natural instinct that comes in for a dad to your female daughter is one of just protection. I definitely remember feeling that when she was born and she was lying on my chest. I felt this overwhelming sense of, I will do anything to protect this child, no matter what it takes.
I had the same thing when my oldest daughter was born. She was minutes old, and I was holding her in my hands and looking at her eyes, and they were wide open and staring deep into me as well. I know she couldn't see anything, but it was just that connection that, my goodness, I'm a father now, and this little girl is my responsibility, and I'd better do my best not to screw it up.
100%. I think it's a whole mixture of emotions you feel. I can remember feeling fear, as you said, thinking, I don't want to mess this up. You see this tiny little baby that could literally fit in my one hand, and you just really get the sense of I'm responsible for this. So yeah, apart from the fear, it was just an overwhelming sense of joy and gratitude and a whole bunch.
Your life took a rather tragic turn not too long after your daughter was born. Your wife became ill and she wound up passing away. What was that like to realize that you were going to be a solo father?
Yeah, so it was actually before Michaela was born, we had been walking our health journey with my wife, Therese. And yeah, it was quite a story. But basically, when she was diagnosed with a life-threatening condition, she was told she had about 2 to 3 years to live. And we were told that having children was definitely not in the picture at all. So we believed that we received a miracle, and Therese was well enough to have a child. And we left it in God's hands. And 2-3 weeks after we made the decision, Cerise fell pregnant. So yeah, so Cerise suddenly passed after having a minor operation when Michaela was about 18 months old. We were in the UK at the time. And yeah, at the time, nothing can prepare you for that. It was my greatest fear that came true. And it was very much, I'm sure we will lean into that in our discussions. It was very much survival mode for a good period of time. But I do believe that God certainly equipped me with what I needed to give what my child needed from me.
Does your daughter ask a lot of questions about her mom? Or does she ever want to talk about her?
She does now. She does
Okay.
now. Something cracked open in her when she was around about 5. We had gone through some other difficult things in life as well. And I think what happened was when I started actually going on my own journey of whatever you want to call it, I call it a form of awakening where you start to see things from a very different lens. You start to maybe connect with God while you're actually learning to connect with yourself and getting out of that space of protection and control and fear. And I think as that process was taking place for me, it gave my child permission to start feeling some of what she was feeling. Because I do believe that we're mirrors to one another. So there was a real protection that my child had, whilst I had that protection around me as well. But it was quite something when we actually started really speaking and when that door started opening for her. We had the most amazing conversations, and there were things about Cerise that she remembered even as a 1-year-old, which blew my mind. That was, it really spoke into this deep inherent connection that takes place certainly between a mother and a daughter. And even though Cerise, she passed, that connection still remains. So yes, even now, she's now 10 years old. And we go through pictures and there's still questions she asks. She loves to find out more about her mom, who she was, how she showed up. So it's been really amazing to see what can be possible when your child has permission to realize that nothing's really out of bounds in terms of inquiring and being curious.
Thank you for being open with her for that, because I'm sure it was tragic for her to lose a mom, but your willingness to talk about it and talk about your wife and her feelings about losing her mom is going to help her in ways that we'll find out later just how important that was. When you went through that spiritual awakening, or that awakening, did you come of faith at that point, or had you been rather faithful all your life?
So I was brought up with my dad as a pastor. So I very much had that background, that Christian conditioning. I had a relationship with God. I had the foundations. And at the same time, through the pain that I went through, I definitely recognized that my relationship with God was very much more of a head knowledge relationship with God rather than a deeper connection. And I think that speaks into the allowing one to feel certain emotions, because as men, we sometimes see strength as being control of it. I've got it. And we don't always feel that actually being vulnerable and expressing what we actually feel, for me, is what true strength looks like. And it's the very thing that gives your child the permission to actually express and to feel things as well. Yeah, definitely through a lot of pain that I went through and a lot of questions and a lot of honest reflections, it deepened my relationship with God in a way that became very real and raw, and a relationship where I felt divinely held through everything, rather than just a mental understanding that God is with me, yet inside I feel broken and lost and confused and all the rest.
I can imagine that would be a very difficult situation to go through, but also, like you had said, an opportunity for you to connect closer to God at that point because of the things that you were going through, and that he could guide you through that. So that's neat. What are some
For
of the
sure.
things that your daughter likes to do?
She loves singing. So she's got a real passion for singing, for music. She has recently started learning to play keyboard and guitar. And then she loves soccer. She's really got into it. She's a real girly girl. And at the same time, she's got this little competitive energy in her where you put her on a sports field and there's another side that comes out. Maybe that came from me, I'm sure. But yeah, she's really enjoying her soccer at the moment.
How do you support her in all of this? Do you just encourage her to take the lessons or to grow, or do you have to go out of your way to help her?
Yeah, it's a commitment. I've got to make sure she's at the practices, obviously having the financial means to support these passions. But it's such a privilege because I can see that when I show interest in her passions, I can see how much it means to her. So it's a real pleasure to be able to.
As an athlete, does she realize she has to eat healthy, or do you encourage her in that regard?
She's pretty good. She's pretty good. I planted seeds in her around health. She's like any other child. When she can get her hands on some sugar, she'll take advantage. But yeah, I've raised her in a way in which I try to empower her as much as possible, not telling her, you can't do this, you can't do that. Rather allowing the question for her to ask why. And I find that when she understands, she tends to make her own healthy decisions, which is good.
That is wonderful. Yes, and girls have no problem at all questioning how and why and things like that. And they never end when they're like 3 or 4 years old. It is one question after another, but that's how they learn.
I'll tell you what, I think I definitely supported opening up the curiosity tap, but once it was turned on, it hasn't stopped since then. So,
what are some of the things that your daughter absolutely does not like to do?
Dishes. Yeah, I would say her chores, again, very relatable. Yeah, there's definitely a resistance there. She's quite an easygoing child. I wouldn't say there's too many things that she really doesn't like to do. She doesn't really like going to bed when she's supposed to. I think she has a bit of FOMO, a bit of fear of missing out. But apart from that, she's pretty easygoing.
Now, how do you encourage her to try new things? Or do you have to encourage her? Is she more of a kind of a gal who likes to try new things?
It can be a balancing act, especially in today's age where technology is so prevalent. And that seems to be the natural inclination for young people to find their entertainment with technology or YouTube and things like that. I have had to plant little seeds in her and put some boundaries in place when it comes to technology use, definitely. I do try and tell her about what it was like for me growing up in my era, and she hears me and she very politely says, "Oh, Dad, that sounds great, but it's not like that anymore, is it?" Yeah, some gentle encouragement always goes a long way.
I was going to ask, do you have any special rules in place for internet use and things like when she can get a cell phone?
Yeah, so she does have a phone, but there are definite restrictions with that. When she comes home from school in the afternoon, I give her about 45 minutes to unwind, have something to eat, watch a little bit of TV. Her phone I try and encourage it as much as possible to be used as a tool to research around things that she is excited about. And then, yes, very much in terms of time limits, the phone doesn't stay with her, it stays with me. And yeah, she understands that. There's a little bit of pushback on that. And I know that as she gets closer to teenage years, I think that's probably going to change. But even though we have these boundaries in place, I think it's very important, especially for both of us, that she feels as though I am trusting her, and at the same time that she recognizes that these things that I put in place are, I believe, were our highest good.
Do you put in any filters to prevent access to specific areas of the internet?
Yeah, she's on some, I think it's the Google Parents, I can't remember what the name is, but she has a time limit. So when she goes to cousins or friends and I let her spend time on her phone, she has an hour time limit pretty much in the day. And then on, let's say, special occasions or when she asks very nicely, I will extend that time limit. Sometimes use that as leverage as well.
Sure. Do you work from home?
I do, yes.
You do. So that helps a lot so that when she comes home, you're there and you can oversee the things that she's doing.
Very much so.
What do you do for a living?
I moved into the coaching space, specifically around consciousness coaching, teaching, and supporting people on their journey of presence. So yeah, that journey, I'd always been a teacher, I'd always been a sports coach and sports coordinator. And my journey through my grief actually brought me upon this path, which really helped me to process through my grief and my questions. So it became a natural progression to serve others in this way as well.
Very good. What are some of the things that you and your daughter enjoy doing together?
She loves when I watch something on YouTube with her and I show interest in it. She's got a few favorites. I'm sure you've heard of Mr. Beast. Yeah, that's one of the YouTubers that she enjoys watching, and these guys called Dude Perfect as well. She enjoys watching them. So I find it quite entertaining myself. So when I watch that with her, she really enjoys it. And we love going on hikes. We enjoy just putting a blanket on the grass and having some meats out and putting some music on and just connecting that way, whether we're talking or not talking, just being present with one another.
Would your daughter encourage you or support you if you wanted to start dating again?
So I actually have been in a relationship for the last year. So that was quite an interesting transition because it had just really been Michaela and I. And initially she was open to some female energy and they got on really well. And then there was a little bit of a, hold on, you're starting to take my dad's time away from me now. So there's been a little bit of a pushback, but they've got a beautiful connection, the two of them. So it has made it easier. The more she's been able to see Genevieve's intentions, they've definitely formed a really healthy bond.
At 10, your daughter's on the cusp of a big change in life. And have you been preparing yourself for this change? And how have you been doing that?
It's arrived.
Already.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had noticed some of the hormonal changes, some of the body changes. And I can say that it was maybe just divine timing, divine grace that when I got into this relationship with my partner, that it coincided with when Michaela was starting to go through some of these changes. So I always say, what do I know? So I'm very grateful that I do have another woman in my life who can support me in that area and just help her to feel a little bit more supported as well.
That's great. I know even though I had 3 daughters, they could go to my wife for questions that they had about things that they were going through or to have those discussions. And I didn't know how I was going to ever address those questions if they came to me. So right now your daughter is taking them to your partner and you don't have to have those discussions with her?
No, not only do I not have to, even when I ask her a few questions, she doesn't want to speak to me about anything around that, which I understand. And I'm actually quite happy just to pass that one over. I think it's been good to recognize some of the sudden mood shifts that happen and to also recognize that it's not a form of disrespect. It's sometimes just things that are happening in one's body. So it's an ongoing learning process for me as well.
It is remarkable at that age that the same girl who goes into the shower can be entirely different when she comes out. It's just crazy how quickly the moods can change.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. So how do you talk to your daughter about issues of faith? Is that something that you can talk about or that she wants to talk about?
Yeah, for sure. I think she's seen it very much lived through me. It's a huge part of my journey, my connection with God. We speak about it a lot. We talk about even things around life and death. I think when you've gone through certain things that we've gone through, there's nothing out of bounds in terms of what we can talk about, which is really beautiful. So I don't tell her who God is and what God's about and go and read your Bible and all the rest. For me, it's very important that this all becomes a lived experience for her. I give her the foundation and value systems that for me align with who I see God to be and who I see myself to be through God. And I think those value systems naturally show up in her. And she's got a natural curiosity around things of the Bible, even different faiths as well, which I find beautiful. Very much encourage her to be open to having a healthy respect and love for different cultures, different faiths. And then just for her, in her faith with God, to keep it simple. And the simplicity around that is that there is nothing that can connect her from the love that lives inside of her. So our minds can take us in many different places and can bring about many questions, but that deeper foundational truth as to who we are remains always.
Many times a child can really turn against God in a situation where they have lost a parent and they have a hard time trusting that God is good. Was that ever a problem for your daughter?
I don't know if she's ever had the question as to whether God is good. She's definitely asked questions around why did God have to mommy so early? And initially, when that first came up, I didn't know either. And even still now, in my logical mind, it doesn't make sense, right, to my humanness. But it's very much seen that, and she's seen it in her own life as well, that everything that happens in this life, no matter how painful, I believe, is always happening for our highest good. If we can surrender to that, we can surrender more to what is happening in our life, because it really is the resistance and the holding on to the whys and all the rest that creates a deep sense of suffering, which is a necessary part of the journey. And at the same time, when you do have that openness and that curiosity, which she does, she's seeing evidence in her own life of God's goodness in spite of her not having her mom. So on a very deep level, she recognizes that everything that happened with her mom happened as it was supposed to.
That is great perspective. Thank you for sharing that. Did your daughter express any career aspirations? Does she have any idea what she'd like to do once she gets older?
In the moment, she wants to be a soccer player, it seems. I think our female soccer team here in South Africa is called Banyana, if I'm not mistaken. But we'll see. I know that things change, especially at this age. She wanted to be a singer a little while ago. She wants to be a professional soccer player now. So my role as a parent is just to support her in those areas that she shows passion, and just to let her inquire these different passions that come up for her.
Do you encourage or discourage certain pursuits?
I can remember when she came and she said that she wants to be a pop star. There was something in me that was like, I don't know about that. But I had to just let it play out. And she loves singing. And sometimes she looks at some of these female artists and it looks like an amazing life. But as I always gently tell her, there's a lot more to these things that we can always see. No, there's nothing that she's mentioned where I've said, no, you will not do that, because she's also got a bit of a rebellious streak in her like her dad. I wouldn't be surprised if I said, no, you won't be doing that, where she may even lean more into it. So I just keep it open.
I certainly understand. Has the way you communicated with your daughter changed over the years?
Yeah, as I was saying earlier, I've got a very open way of communicating with her. We speak about things openly. Obviously, there's child-appropriate things, but the difference has been, again, in my openness to life as well, which has allowed me to be curious and to be a lot more present with her, and to not pass down my conditioning around how I was raised or taught that you had to be as a child. And I always say to her, she is a free spirit. And I really try and give her that space and that trust to live that out in her life.
I often have to ask dads whether they take time for one-on-one things, but you live with your daughter alone, so everything is one-on-one. But do you make specific times in your schedule where it's just the two of you to do something fun, maybe that she wants to do?
Yeah, we've had endless little adventures, the two of us over the years. So as I say, since I have been in another relationship, the transition has been where I've had to turn to my mom and I've had to say, Mom, can you look after Michaela? I need to put some energy into my relationship as well. But yeah, we're very intentional of having family time in the evening, during dinner time, before bedtime. It's very much a time where there's for the most part, no phones, no technology, maybe playing some board games and just talking about whatever we want to talk about.
How do you encourage her to open up about her worries and her concerns? Or does she try and still keep them bottled inside?
I find that she feels safe to come and speak to me about things. We definitely have created that sense of safety in this relationship. I do see when I notice a little bit of distance from her, and what I've learned with her is never to try and push her to talk. Just to remind her that I am here. And I find that if I create that space for her, if I create that safe space, eventually she will speak. But I find that if I'm in my head, if I'm going through things and I'm feeling a little bit disconnected, it generally passes on to her as well. So yeah, when I'm present with her, I don't find that there are times that she is withholding information and things that she may be struggling with. She is a very open child.
Well, some of the best advice I received as a father was that you have to make yourself available, because many times the girls, especially when they get in their teen years, don't want to talk on a schedule. So that like next Tuesday, we're going to go have a talk. It's like they show up, it comes on their mind. They want to talk about it right then. And whether you're available at that point or not influences whether they are going to open them and tell you their most deepest concerns and things like that. So you
Very
find
much.
that maintaining that open availability, has that been easy for you?
It's been a question for me, I would say, a journey of regulating my as well, which allows me to hone in on her needs and her desire for my presence, because sometimes I am a bit caught up in some of the things of the world and some of the stresses and things like that. And when she says things to me like, Dad, are you all right? I feel like you're a bit distant. Now, sometimes I think I'm not the one who's supposed to be bringing that up with her, but these are the sort of things she does mention to me. And I think that brings about the awareness of, okay, I'm a little bit stuck in my head, and it's just a question of just, again, and this is also very much what I'm passionate about and what I teach, is to come back into a space of presence, just to be aware of your breath and to come back into the here and now, which is where all connection is found.
One of the problems dads have in communicating many times is they have a difficulty hearing or listening to their daughters without trying to fix them. Is that an issue for you?
Yeah, I think all of us men can relate. I think we are wired that way, to be fixers. And the last few years, again, I think coinciding with my journey, I have learned the power of listening without offering a solution. So what I tend to do is, when she expresses something to me, whether it's a friend that she's struggling with at school or a teacher or something like that, I will listen to her and then I will ask her, would you like me to offer my perspective on that, or would you just like me to listen to you? And I find that just by asking her that question, because beforehand I was just immediately in solution mode. And I have come to realize that a lot of the time that I was trying to solution, she was just saying, Dad, just be with me and just listen to me so I can feel that this situation is okay. I've got it. I'm handling it, but I just want you to be present with me.
That's good to walk her through that realization that she's got it. And many times they can't talk it out themselves if they're given the opportunity to do that, because I think instinctively they know what to do. They just need reassurance that what they're doing is the right thing. And many times talking it out, it gives them that kind of assurance.
For sure. And I think it goes back to then feeling that you trust them, and for them to really recognize as well that when she's got emotions, big emotions that she feels, all emotions are welcome. This has been something that we really have encouraged, not just the positive emotions, but specifically some of the what we perceive to be negative emotions, to lean into it and not to push it away, and to actually allow yourself to feel some of the polarities of life without trying to control not feeling some of the difficult stuff. And I find that as she's been able to do that for herself, it's given her confidence that she can actually deal with difficult situations on her own.
That's a wonderful perspective. I know growing up, my dad was, if you're going to cry, I'm going to give you something to cry about kind of father. And it's so important to have that release. And many times parents don't understand that when kids have been dealing with things all day long, they've been keeping it in and keeping it out of control, under control. When they finally get home and it's okay to relax and it's a safe place, they let everything go. And it's just sometimes difficult for people like me raised in that environment of give you something to cry about to let them go. So that's good that you give her that space.
Yeah. Greg, I was raised the same way. And, what I've come to realize is that our parents are always raising us from the level of awareness they have at the time.
Exactly.
As when I came to that realization, it gave me a lot of deep compassion for my dad and my mom, because I started having a deeper understanding how they were raised. And we pass on the way our parents, the conditioning that we've received, we pass it on until we go through things in life where we say, hold on, maybe that wasn't as healthy as what I thought it was. Maybe I'm going to do things differently. And I certainly have learned things from my parents. And there's a lot that I do differently in terms of how I was raised as well.
How do you balance a desire to protect your daughter with her desire to be independent?
Oh, it's a good question.
It's going to get worse.
I think sometimes that desire to protect, which is a very natural, inherent instinct that all dads have especially for their daughters, but it can sometimes border on fear. And sometimes I notice that desire to protect becoming a desire to control. So if I can control, then nothing bad is going to happen. So it's very much a balancing act. And we're at an age now where we are very slowly starting to lean into maybe her going to a friend's home and to have a sleepover and things like that. I trust my instinct, because if I didn't, I think I would just keep her in a bubble wrap and just keep her wrapped up in her room and safe. But not only my instinct, I trust God's perfect love and hand over her life as well. And obviously, if there's something that she does want to do, and there have been those times, and I just haven't felt at peace with it, and I've had the performance and I've had all of those things, and I've just had to say to her, babes, you just have to trust that I'm doing this as far as I'm aware for your best interest.
And that's hard for them to hear, but it's so important that you hold the line to that, because when you've got the crying and the pleading eyes and things like that, it is really hard to cave in, and that can lead to disastrous things. I was going to ask about sleepovers if you allow them at her age.
So she has sleepovers at her cousin's place, my sister's place. So that's great. She's got lovely connections with her cousins, and she has had one or two sleepovers. But for me, very important that I know the family, I'm connected to the family. And as I said, I would never just let her go and have sleepovers, but a friend of I didn't have some form of connection with the parents.
Do you host sleepovers for her? Can she bring her friends over to your house?
That's been a bit of a difficult one, because being a single dad, I understand this from parents' perspective. She has had some of her girlfriends who have wanted to come and sleep over, and then inevitably, when they find out, oh, there's just a man, there's just a dad looking after the kids, I think there is a little bit of apprehension, which I completely understand. So that has been difficult for her. So generally speaking, sleepovers have taken place at a household where there is a dad and a mom.
That's a good point. What are some of the most important values that you think fathers need to instill in their daughters today?
My values that I instill in my child are reflections of the values that I hold with a lot of weight in this life. I think integrity is one. Being your word. If you give your word to do everything you can to follow through on that. Compassion, and certainly compassion for the times that we don't keep our words, to have plenty of compassion and grace. And then forgiveness. We very much go this journey, this life journey we take. It's very much around recognizing that there's always going to be people who are going to sometimes intentionally, unintentionally hurt us, and that we put boundaries in place. So for her, she knows that there are certain boundaries and she's got a voice. She's allowed to express what her boundaries are, but never holding grudges, always having an open heart to forgive, to see the best in people. And at the same time, if patterns are taking place that she can see, for her to recognize when boundaries need to be put in place. And yeah, I would say just being a kind human being, reflecting the fruits of the spirit, really.
Mm-hmm. You had mentioned that she wanted to be a pop star at some point, and things like that. It's that desire, I think, innate in all girls, that they want to be popular. Have you had those discussions yet where I don't think people like me, or I want to be more popular, or the desire to be popular so they give up on themselves to fit in more with the crowd?
Yeah, I love that question. I have noticed, especially in the last year, that she has become a little bit more impressionable. She has become a lot more aware of her appearance. It comes back to that sense of enoughness. It comes back to that sense of inherent enoughness, that there's nothing you have to do to be worthy. You are worthy simply through your being, simply through this breath that you take. And that's very much something that is deeply entrenched in her. So when she is leaning a little bit too into the latest trend, I allow her to be present with it all. But I do in my own way ground her to a deeper truth, and just to create awareness around that all the external things, they come and they go. And there's only one thing that remains for eternity, which is inside of us. So that's very much something that I do believe is going to be very much grounded in her throughout this life experience.
I know for my daughters, when it was all three of them followed the same pattern, they were very good in math and science in elementary school. They got to 7th grade in middle school, and they intentionally dumbed themselves down to make themselves more popular to the guys in the class. Yeah. And that was just the saddest thing to watch. And they never rebounded from that. And well, one went into accounting, which is like mathematics, but it was hard to see or watch that thing take place, because you know that it's within them to be able to do these kinds of things, and yet they choose not to do it. And that can be hard for dads.
Yeah, when you mention guys, that is probably every dad's daughter's nightmare. But yeah, she's a very much a very innocent child in all ways, really. And I am also seeing very subtle, as I said to you before, just little things around her clothing and things like that. And I'm very locked into it. So again, I'm trying to find that balance between not suffocating, not being overprotective, and also, again, reflecting it back to her and asking her, like, what is your intention for wanting to wear this or wanting to do this? And let her think about it for herself.
Your daughter's into sports, so self-confidence generally is not a problem for girls who are involved in sports. Is it with your daughter?
Yeah, I feel like she's quite a confident child. Again, I feel like confidence does come from a foundation of feeling loved and secure. And I think that children who have that sense of safety exude a natural confidence. I do feel as though she's got a healthy confidence as it stands.
Has sports helped her in that regard?
Yeah, I would say definitely playing soccer. Also playing soccer with some of the older kids, some of the boys. She's definitely got something in her that likes to prove that she can put in a good challenge with one of the boys. And yeah, as I said, there's that competitive spirit definitely inside of her.
That's fun. Have you had any parenting blunders or embarrassing moments that have given you a lesson in parenting?
A blunder is maybe a little bit harsh. I would say I've definitely learned a lot about myself and how I go about my parenting. I've learned when I am projecting my way onto my child and when that way isn't necessarily coming from a place of presence, it's coming more from a place of fear and control. So I see, I've definitely been willing to see those areas. And I would say if we want to call it a blunder, it's probably been my need to fix and to give advice around everything. So definitely, as I have been willing to listen and hold that space for her, it's shifted a lot in our relationship.
Okay. If you could roll the clock back, is there anything you would do differently? No? Good.
I don't believe in regrets. I believe that everything happens exactly as it's supposed to. And sure, I've learned a huge amount from things that I haven't done as well as what maybe I do now. And I know that in 10 years' time, I would have learned a huge amount as well. I just choose to be, sometimes as a parent, you can judge yourself. You can be a bit hard on yourself for feeling like you're not doing enough for your child. I think that's a very common thing that parents feel. I certainly have gone through times of feeling that way. And it's been very important for me to recognize that I know that I'm always doing the best I can with what I have. And the more compassionate I've been towards myself, the more I've been able to take ownership of certain parenting styles that maybe haven't been serving her.
Do you have any advice for fathers who are still trying to figure out how to make things work out with their daughters or struggling in the particular area of somebody who is a 9, 10, 11?
I would say just be kind to yourself. Be compassionate with the way you find yourself right now. Because the need and the thought that you're not doing well enough just perpetuates the cycle until you start actually recognizing that, hey, I'm doing the best I can and I'm open to learning to do better for my child. And that goes back to being willing to seeing some of your own traumas that maybe you haven't lent into and dealt with yet. And it takes courage. So as a father, if that's something that's coming up, I would say lean into that, because if you can lean into your own areas, the unconscious areas that are maybe coming into your consciousness now, it will have a massive impact on your child. As you treat yourself with more kindness, your child picks up on that as well, and your connection starts deepening.
I love that advice very much. Thank you, Greg, for your time today. I really appreciate it. How can people connect with you if they would like to ask you a question or follow your journey?
Yeah, thank you, Greg. It's been amazing chatting to you. And as I said to you earlier, thank you for this intention. I think it's amazing work that you do, and it's inspired me as well. So thank you. Greg, I blog on Facebook. So if anyone wanted to connect with me on Facebook, I've got a page called Authentic Coaching, and then even my private Facebook account, which maybe might be a better one to go to. If they just had to search Greg Coote, his surname is Coote. I think there's only one Greg Coote on Facebook. But yeah, if anyone were looking to ask me any questions or to connect, or I'm very open. I love having those conversations. The invite is very much there.
Wonderful. Thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg.
Greg Coote's story is an excellent reminder that none of us are perfect dads, but we can all be present, intentional, and willing to grow. There are a few takeaways from this interview that really stand out. First, your daughter doesn't need you to have all the answers. She just needs you to be present, to listen, and to create a safe space where she feels heard and seen. Second, it's okay to step back from trying to fix everything. Sometimes the most important thing we can do as dads is to simply listen and let our daughters work through whatever they're feeling. Third, your own growth matters. When you become more self-aware, compassionate, and present, your daughter feels it and responds quickly. Fourth, it is important to balance protection with trust. Set boundaries, of course, but give your daughter room to grow into her own independence. And finally, give yourself some grace. You're doing the best you can with what you have, and being open to learning is what makes you a great dad. If you'd like to connect with Greg Coote, you can find him on Facebook by searching for his Authentic Coaching page, or simply look up his personal profile. Greg said he welcomes conversations and is happy to connect with other dads. If you found value in this episode of the Dodo Dads podcast, please share it with another father who could use the encouragement, because the world certainly needs more great girl dads. Thank you for listening.